Hi, it's Katie Mackenzie, your host of I Love Vancouver Real Estate and Mortgage Professional with TMG The Mortgage Group. I'm here today with Tom Munro, Certified Home Inspector with Munro Inspections. Tom, welcome.
Hi, Katie. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Wanted to have you on the show today and ask you point blank, first off, why are you a home inspector?
Well, back in 2001, I had an inspection of a home that I purchased. And at the time, I thought I was doing the right thing, having an inspection. And the inspector I hired to inspect a 3,200 square foot home was in and out of my home in about an hour and 10 minutes and said I was good to go.
Ooh, that's not long enough.
No, not at all. And what he didn't know was what the big circular concrete thing in my front lawn was.
And what was it?
A collection basin for the drainage system. So it gave me no credibility, that report, no credibility. I felt that I didn't have any confidence in buying the home. I bought the home anyway, only to find out a lot of the little problems that I was hoping an inspection would actually discover weren't discovered, and I ended up paying for them myself. So I thought long and hard about it. I thought there's an industry that needs someone like myself who's willing to go the extra mile for people and find out the information to give them that confidence that I was lacking during that home purchase.
Yeah, so you're really highlighting the need for a home inspection.
Absolutely.
We are in an industry where a lot of people are encouraged to write subject-free offers, but we do also know in that case when they're doing that, they have the option to do it pre-offer.
Absolutely, and I encourage everyone not to give up their right to a home inspection, even if they're being pressured not to write a subject-free offer. There are opportunities to have that home inspected before you write your offer. So
tell us, like, in your opinion, and from what you've seen, what's the most important reason to have a home inspection done?
Just from all the hidden expenses and hidden costs that are going to creep up and it could potentially bite your bank account. You know, there's home works as a group of systems, and when the group of systems don't work together, you have a disease, and that disease could be moisture ingress, it could be poor indoor air quality, or mold, and that could affect family members of your family.
Health,
very poorly. And until you move in and you don't know, and potentially remediation costs of that could be in the tens of thousands of dollars if depending on how bad the mold could be.
So obviously you want to look at the things from an investment perspective as a buyer that will cost you the most to repair. So what should people really be looking at and focusing on?
Well, when they go look at an open house, say, instead of going right in the front door, you should be walking around the home. And I always encourage people to walk around it 2 or 3 times. And what you're looking at is you're looking at the roof, the building envelope, parts of the foundation that are visible, and also the drainage system where the standpipes come out of the ground to collect water from the downspouts. Are they a segmental clay tile or a concrete tile that goes vertically into the ground, or are they a black plastic, which is known as Big O, or PVC piping? So a drainage system that hasn't been replaced, that's say over 40 years old, is at the end of its service life and needs replacement, and you have to dig up the surround of your whole home and actually reinstall a new drainage system, which is $30,000-$40,000 depending on the size of the home.
So I'd be sitting in the kitchen envisioning my first dinner party.
And your basement has 8 inches of water and it started raining.
Exactly. So a case in point, I wouldn't know what to look for. So
the 4 most expensive components of the home is the roof, the building envelope, the foundation, and the drainage system. Those are the things that need replacement. Those components have a recommended service life. A lot of people would understand that a roof, you look at a roof that's aged, that's 20 years old approximately, and it starts to lose the granulars, it starts to cup, and the shingles actually start to shrink, and that needs replacement. But believe it or not, a foundation has a service life, the building envelope, and so do the drainage system. And those are all more expensive components to replace than a roof.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know a lot of lenders these days are actually relying on depreciation reports with specific regards to strata. Can you speak to the validity of those reports, how reliant a client can be on those as opposed to actually completing a full inspection?
Well, I'd like to say that depreciation reports are a very important component when buying into a strata, and they can be, depending on who wrote the depreciation report. And believe it or not, anybody can write a depreciation report, including yourself as a mortgage broker.
No licensing.
No licensing. And unfortunately, when they brought that legislation in for depreciation reports for strata, they didn't specify who is qualified to write a depreciation report. And who decides who's qualified is actually the strata. So the strata can decide to choose whoever they want to write their depreciation report. So if you get a depreciation report from a strata, before you even look at page 1, go right to the qualifications of the person who wrote it and look at see if they're actually insured as well. I've seen reports written by gardeners of the complex, from a person that lives on strata. Obviously, there's some conflict of interest there. I've seen reports written by people with diploma of technology, which means they could probably run a software program. But no, in a lot of places, that's just nobody with any building science experience and how to build like a tactical plan for the strata, and also forecast, be able to put an accurate number to forecasting. So the depreciation reports that I've seen ones that have errors where they're missing components, and I think maybe the person that wrote it was missed it intentionally. I've seen some reports where in the first line of the report, inspector or the author of the report said that they never actually visited the site to actually inspect, that they were just sent a bunch of pictures and they wrote a depreciation report based on that. I've also seen some where there had been a strata review of the depreciation report, and anybody looking to buy into that building should review the review of it and that's for the information. So obviously the person writing the report was trying to cover their own liability there, to say there was subtly trying to say there was components removed from that depreciation report. So at the end of the day, the person who, if you're going to buy into a strata, you really need to have your own representation. Who works for you? And it's having a certified home inspector, review the documentation that help you review that documentation, but also go and look at what's going on. And at that point, make your own, obviously you're going to do your homework to find yourself a great inspector of it, and that inspector is going to help you and give you the confidence, give you the answers you're truly looking for, because what you might be reading could be fully censored. You have no idea.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't know if a depreciation report had been censored, but I know in my almost 17 years of experience in lending that strata reports have changed significantly. Absolutely. And there is less and less indicated in there. And typically we only look at a couple of years, and it's the owners writing the reports on the strata council. So as you say, then, if a client is doing a full home inspection, it's for them, of them, and in their best interest.
And then they own the report. There's a lot of people behind them that may be asking for the report. Possibly the mortgage broker could ask for the report, the homeowner's insurance company, and maybe even their lender. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. We do see that more and more, where you've got properties that have a small number of units, or they're self-managed. They don't have a lot of in their contingency reserve, and the lender's looking for some sort of a comfort level, and then that next stage is to ask for that home inspection.
And if you don't have one, what are you going to do?
You can't offer it up. So can you talk to me about this pre-inspection versus doing a home inspection during a subject removal period? Because there is this idea out there that you're not going to be able to get an accepted offer with subjects.
Yeah, since the spring of 2015 in Vancouver, it's been a crazy real estate market, and rumor has it that inspections aren't happening. And believe it or not, there's plenty of inspections happening that aren't talked about. And when somebody writes a subject-free offer with no inspection, they actually might have had a pre-offer inspection, but nobody talks about that. It's the middle of August, and I've actually done over 200 home inspections this year already. A majority of them have been pre-offer inspections, and what I'm doing is I'm going in and I'm inspecting the home before my client writes an offer. So the realtors are happy to let us through and let me through. Sometimes there are 2, maybe 3 other inspectors there with me, because they've given us a specific time that we can do the inspection. But at least our client is going to be able to write the offer knowing what's happening. And a lot of times they will sometimes write offers a little higher, knowing that there's no major expenses coming down kind of on them in the near future. But there has been situations where I've done a pre-offer inspection and I've noticed that support beams were removed from basements so they could get headroom in for doorways of a basement suite, because they wanted to add money there to create like a revenue helper.
Yeah, mortgage helper.
The house was sagging because of it in the center of the home, and it could have collapsed. And so it's that importance of finding out, has this home been altered? What have they done? Have they damaged the structure? Have they overloaded the electrical system by adding that basement suite?
Yes.
And have they done any sort of things like replace the drainage system when there could potentially be moisture ingress? So if they've done any of those details. So it's about having the answers before you write the offer. And I've done a lot of inspections this year. I know rumor has it that people haven't done inspections. I've even done a lot of inspections where they were a subject to inspection, and the realtors had written they had maybe the highest offer, but subject to inspection. So I've still done a lot of them. So, it's easy to talk about what, the shock and awe of it. Oh my gosh, who would ever write an offer without it? But at the end of the day, a lot of people are getting inspections done.
I've seen it with my clients in the last year, every which way. Pre-inspection, during the offer period, subject free, and doing one post subject acceptance or offer acceptance. So I've seen it every which way, and I've seen it work well, and I've seen clients get caught with something they weren't expecting. And something like that is an oil tank. I know that has been a big issue and a hot topic. Have you had any clients that you've seen with issues around oil tanks?
Well, as I'm actually the only inspector in the entire GVRD that scans for oil tanks, which I find a bit shocking.
How is that possible?
Well, I went and purchased myself a special scanning device, went through some training, and chose to, as an inspector, to make sure I had the best tools, to make sure I had all the answers for my clients. I have seen, because I'm an inspector with a special tool, I have had people call me saying, I think we bought a house with an oil tank. And I've gone and located their oil tank. And depending on what the contract said, the client may have been responsible for the cost of it, or the previous homeowner could still be responsible for the cost of it. And sometimes it actually goes back, 2 or 3 generations of who owned that home. Yeah. If the person's still alive, they still may be paying for the removal of that oil tank, even though they sold the house 25 years ago.
So if we just back up for people who haven't necessarily owned a single-family home or know what the issue is with oil tanks, I know from my side as a mortgage broker that it basically is going to kill your financing.
Yeah, I mean, it could cost $2,500 to take it out if there's absolutely zero leakage from the tank, or it could cost $125,000 or $250,000 to remove it if there's been major, saturation of the soils around the tank. Yeah. And really, it's the one thing when I'm doing an inspection, if I find an oil tank, either if the current homeowner is not going to clean it up and remove it and pay for the cost of remediation, I tell my client to walk away. It's the one thing that is just a full stop. We're leaving, and because it's an unlimited cost. We don't know how much oil's leaked until you dig it up. And I would never suggest a client buy a house to only find out that the oil tanks leached underneath their neighbor's house, and now they're digging up their neighbor's yard as well, and possibly supporting their neighbor's house with shoring and all sorts of underpinning and things like that. Yeah. I've seen it happen. And so it's the one thing, any home built prior to 1970 needs to have an oil tank scan. And possibly any home built after 1970 as well, if it's the second home built on the property. I have had a situation of a house that was built in 1991 in New Westminster, and I did an oil tank scan and found a tank from a house that was built in 1929.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the oil tank was still there, it was still full of oil, and it had leaked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, it's so important. I was actually in a house that had an above ground oil tank, and my buyer, I suggested I just quickly do the tank scan, and I found the above ground oil tank pushed in a hole in the backyard, and they threw a bunch of paving stones and stuff on top of it to hold it down because it was in a floodplain. So people don't throw these things out or do the proper pay for them to get removed. They actually just push them in a hole in the backyard.
Hide it.
You just never know what might be lurking underneath the ground of a property you might be buying.
I know for my clients specifically, if they're buying something that's 10 plus years old, instinct is that they want an inspection. But something brand new, 1 or 2 years, I don't need an inspection.
Yeah.
It's still recommended. Why?
It's absolutely buyer beware out there. I inspect brand new homes all the time. In fact, I just inspected a group of brand new homes recently where there was 5 pages of BC Building Code deficiencies on all the homes. And my reports made it to the local city hall, where they took my report and would not give the final occupancy on the home that my clients were buying until these things were repaired. And unfortunately, even though the home's been built, you assume it's been inspected by the local inspectors, as the building permits and everything would predict, it doesn't mean the home was built properly. It doesn't mean that what you're expecting to see is actually there. Even the BC Safety Authority, who inspects for electrical and gas, on their website, they say they only inspect 1 in 5 homes. So just because you're buying a home, do not assume that the electrical system has been inspected, because it may not have been, and it might have been signed off on, even though it was never inspected. So it's very important to have a brand new home inspected. I inspect buildings, and what I do is I take the final architectural drawings and I cross-reference them with who installed and what was installed on the building. And I work for stratas all the time where the 2.5 with the 2.5/10 warranty coverage, and I'm trying to predict the things that are going to deteriorate prematurely, that are going to cost the strata money, maybe in the first 5 years of occupancy, that should be built properly to the architectural specifications. And when it's spec'd one way and built another, that's a major concern, because the people thought they were paying for something else and they got a cheaper product that's going to deteriorate and it's going to fail prematurely and ultimately cost them more money. And, historically in the condominium market in Vancouver with the leaky condos between 85 and 95 and all the different, how quickly things are being built. Even let's talk about the Olympic Village.
Oh, yeah.
How quickly that was put up.
Don't talk about it.
It's buyer beware out there. And it's about having a really great inspector who can give you the answers you're really looking for.
So you've presented me with your licensed home inspector card. But what does that really mean? Like, how does someone find an inspector other than a referral? Let's say you're new to the city, you don't have a referral source, you're trying to source one. How do you know if this card is valid? It's not something somebody's just printed. How do you know, what's the licensing requirements?
So the licensing requirement is there's education for the different associations. So right now there's a couple associations. There's ASTTBC-PI, which is what I belong to. It's the Applied Science Trades and Technicians of British Columbia. And there's a group called CAHPI, which is a Canadian Association of Home and Property Inspectors. There's another group that's just started out called the BC Association of Home and Property Inspectors. And they're all licensed through the BC Consumer Protection Program, which is a government institution which you have to have fulfill the educational component for one of those associations and apply for your license. And so if you're going to hire an inspector, ask them to see their license. It is very important. It's like people driving down the road. Maybe they don't have a driver's license. That's why we have police. Ask to see their license. And if they can't produce it, be cautious, because there's a lot of people running around pretending they're inspectors who aren't. Or they may not be an insured inspector. You cannot have that license unless you prove that you have the proper insurance to be a licensed inspector.
What does the insurance cover?
So inspectors, it's for liability. So if an inspector was to make a mistake and they made an error and it was going to cost the client $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, it's giving the client some protection. Unfortunately, the different associations have a different structure on their liability. And ASTTBC-PI has a $50,000 liability, where CAHPI has the cost of the inspection for their liability. So it might be $500, it might be $800.
But if you're buying a $3 million West Side Vancouver home...
So it's very important to ask which association they belong to. And most importantly, ask what their liability is. And that kind of goes to, on September 1st of 2016, we have a new standard of inspection coming for all the inspectors across the nation, and a new type of licensing. So that liability of $50,000 is actually then unlimited. So you can, if an inspector makes an error, you can sue them for the cost of the error. Could be $200,000. There wasn't a case where an inspector had to pay $200,000 about 5 or 6 years ago.
That's to the client. Would a lender be able to come after you in that same regard?
You know what? I don't know, but I'd be curious to find out. Great question.
So it should weed out some of the people that are running around as home inspectors that aren't for the client and of the client, or doing the inspection as it should be done.
Well, absolutely. I think, the question you asked me is, what should people do to find an inspector? And I think the most important thing is they can go to the BC Consumer Protection Program. All the licensed inspectors are listed on their website. So if somebody says, I'm a licensed inspector, go take their name, put it into a search in the actual search category of BC Consumer Protection Program, and see if they actually are a licensed inspector. From there, also look, their website, any testimonials, they could, if they are part of Better Business Bureau. But at the end of the day is, how far out there are they maybe on social media? Are they trying to make a difference in the industry? Ask, besides inspecting homes, what else are you doing to try and make the industry better? I personally have created a YouTube channel called The Home Inspector, and I'm putting just great information out there. I'll make a video about what a proper installed hot water tank looks like. And because, believe it or not, I've been inspecting homes for, the last 6 years, and I've yet to see, other than 2 or 3 homes, that has had a properly installed hot water tank.
How is that even possible for the amount of damage that can do?
It comes down to money, and the little seismic straps that might hold that unit in place might cost an extra $25 or $30, but the homeowner doesn't want to pay for it. And at the end of the day, it's the tank needs to be installed properly. If you're going to consider selling your house at any point, and you don't have the proper components holding a hot water tank in place, what else am I going to find that you've maybe cut some corners on? So it's so important to have licensed individuals working for you, licensed plumbers, licensed electricians, those sort of people.
Well, it strikes me as a no-brainer for me in the industry when it's potentially the largest asset and investment you will ever own.
Absolutely.
And or the largest debt you're ever going to take on in one lump sum. So we protect it in other ways. We protect it with mortgage insurance, life insurance, disability insurance. Why are we not protecting it even before we get in to buy it by having a full and complete licensed inspector do a full inspection?
Absolutely. I mean, when I'm asked that same question, I actually asked the same question back is, would you buy a car, a used car, or even a new car without reviewing it first? If you're going to buy a brand new car, read the reviews of it. Or if you're buying a used car, would you have a professional like BCAA? Would you ask them to come and have a look at it? It will be the biggest asset you'll ever buy. And also, it's buyer beware. Everybody has a story about something. There's a shock and awe story about something in this industry. Always. And at the end of the day, people need to start learning from that. Like, why did all these people, I always say a cliche becomes a cliche when a million people say it. And, everybody's talking about, the poor buildings, the new buildings that are being built. They're not the greatest builds these days. People are moving into brand new buildings, finding riddled with problems. Olympic Village. They're finding older homes with the mortgage companies don't want to insure mortgage houses with vermiculite in them. But how do you know if there's vermiculite unless you go into the attic space? And so all these different things you need to know what you're buying. And you might be fine with coming up with $25,000 or $30,000 after you've purchased the home, or you might not. It's just about knowing. At the end of the day, it's about knowing. Can you come up with the money when you need to? Whether you're buying a condo, townhouse, or a detached home, you're going to need to come up with more money. You just want to know when.
Because home insurance won't cover
Nope.
some of this, the majority of it. So, you deliver a report to a client, and ultimately, a realtor should have a look at it. The lender should have a look at it. I always have a look at any documentation that comes across my desk that's a part of a file. But what else can the client expect from you as a part of that service if they were to engage you as the home inspector?
So for me, what I actually do is I take quite a few pictures throughout the inspection. And a lot of times my clients aren't with me during the inspection, although I do encourage them to come along with me. But when I'm on the roof of, say, a condo, I take pictures. What does it look like? And I actually, for a condo, I'll take 60 to 80 pictures, a house, 100 to 150 pictures. What I want to do is I want to sit down with a client and go through each picture one by one so they see the inspection through my eyes. And going back to 2001 when my inspector handed me my report and said, you're good to go, I actually want to spend time with that client talking about what their future use for this home is. Maybe they do want to build a revenue helper or something. I can answer some of those questions, but also knowing that I'm trying to build confidence. There may be nothing wrong with that roof system, but in their mind, they're wondering, did I go on the roof? Did I look at the chimney? Did I look at all the different penetrations through the roof? And does he think they're installed properly? Was he in the attic space? Did he open the electrical panel? How old's our hot water tank? How old's our furnace? All those different things that I provide the answers to. My reports have serial numbers in them from the furnace, hot water tank. They have, what's the R value of the insulation in the attic space, making suggestions possibly to upgrade. I even go as far as to put the actual link to a type of sealant that I want people to seal their tiles and their bathroom walls with, because 99.999% of the time, nobody ever seals their bathroom tiles and they deteriorate prematurely because of it.
Yeah.
So I try and go the extra mile, and then I go through my report. My reports all have pictures in them because those reports could be shared with numerous other parties, and like the homeowners insurance and also possibly lenders. So I want to make sure everyone's getting a really great idea of what the client is buying. And so,
do you ever make the recommendation to not buy?
Not buy a home?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I've told numerous people to walk away from a house. Possibly, there was structural damage where there was diagonal cracks in a foundation, or there was an oil tank. I don't really look at the value of the home, how much someone's paying for the home, because the value is not, I think I leave that up to the realtors. It's based on square foot numbers in different jurisdictions. It's all about, for me, is how much. And, some people ask me, would I buy this house?
People say that all the time.
It's a conflict of interest to ask me, would I buy it? You can ask me, would I let a friend buy it, or would I let my mother buy it?
That's a better question.
Much better question, and I'm totally honest with people. But I have been in situations where I've actually said to people, do not buy this home. Here's why. And I've actually been able to actually talk to a realtor prior to saying do not buy a home. And the realtor, even before I said do not buy the home, has already suggested their clients move on to a different home. And I had a lot of respect for that realtor for doing that. So it's really nice to see some integrity. And so I do answer that question. Yeah, I will say do not buy it.
So in terms of giving back to the industry, what else are you doing other than, quality of work and integrity in the inspections that you're providing?
I've created the YouTube channel called The Home Inspector. And I've done that because I'm trying to just educate the consumer on what is out there, and I'm sharing maintenance tips, some of the shocking things that I do find when I'm inspecting buildings. I was speaking last spring at the Home and Garden Show in Vancouver. That was a great experience. I was just on Global TV with a segment called Open House with Caitlin Herbst, and I'm hoping she's got a few more segments that she'll be sharing in the months to come. But I'd really ultimately love a spot where I can have a lot of engagement like this with people like yourself who are trying to give back to people great information, because it's these sort of avenues where we can get this message out that it is, the rumor has it that the inspections aren't happening, but at the end of the day, it's nice to be able to tell people that the inspections really are, and do not give up your right to an inspection for a proper avenue like this, where people are searching for this information and they will come across it at some point. Maybe it's not sexy enough for TV, us talking like this, but it
neither are numbers when you're doing mortgages.
It is. Sometimes my job's not the most sexy job in the world, but at the end of the day, what it is it's about protecting the consumer. And ultimately, that's all I'm trying to do, is trying to protect consumers and why I'm doing what I do. Yeah.
Awesome. Tom, where can people reach you if they have other questions, need a home inspection, or want more information about your YouTube channel?
Sure, they can call me. They can call me at 604-612-3734. They can look me up on my website at munrohomeinspections.ca. They can also use the hashtag The Home Inspector.
Ooh.
And just put that into a Google search, and you'll find my YouTube channel, you'll find my Instagram page, you'll find all the things that I do constantly on a daily basis, where I share somewhat interesting pictures of things that I find during home inspections. And there's quite a bit of feedback I've gotten from this channel that it's quite entertaining in a lot of ways, but also really that it is shocking, the things that I can find in my inspections, and I share that with people.
I've been through a few of your YouTube videos as well as your Instagram page, and I wouldn't know what to look for. Totally honest. I wouldn't know what to look for. I know other people do. Not my forte. I'm the one sitting in the kitchen dreaming of the first dinner party. But even in the few posts that I have seen, it's very approachable, very easy to understand. You're speaking in a language that anyone can understand, and speaks to the point of the value of a home inspection and for the client in their best interest. Buyer beware.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you for taking the time with me today and being on our new I Love Vancouver Real Estate podcast, and hope to have you back again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I look forward to it anytime.
Thank you. This is Katie Mackenzie, your host of I Love Vancouver Real Estate and Mortgage Professional with TMG, the Mortgage Group. Subscribe with us on iTunes, and we hope to hear from you soon.